What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to my channel, JoJo Speaks. Thank y'all so much for joining me for this being my review for the Real Housewives of Potomac Season 10 Reunion Part 1. So, the first part of reunions, typically not a lot happens, not a lot goes down. It's not until maybe the second or third part that things really get to the nitty gritty. But I did enjoy this first part of the season 10 reunion. So we start out with Wendy and Eddie's raw reaction to their arrest. They're filmed a week after their arrest. Wendy's talking in this very low tone. I can barely hear her. I don't know what's going on with her voice. I don't know what's going on. Eddie looks good as all hell. Oh my gosh, Eddie looks so good. But anyway, so they're speaking to one another concerning the shock value that came along with being arrested. They also talk about the effect that it would have on their kids. One of their sons, really does know what's going on. He saw on his phone, the mugshots and things of that nature. And, it's very traumatic for all of them. It's really traumatic for Wendy, Eddie, and their entire family. It is what it is, innocent until proven guilty. I'm not sure, the evidence is really piled up against them, and so it does really seem as though they are guilty of fraud, but who knows? Only God knows at this point. Oh, and Eddie and Wendy know as well. But, anyways, so it's very traumatic for them, and I'm glad. And also, Wendy asked Eddie if he thinks that this incident will affect their marriage. And Eddie doesn't necessarily answer the question directly, but he's ensuring Wendy that they'll get through it. So anyway, so the ladies show up to New York for the reunion. Of course, if you guys watched my review of the reunion looks on my live Thursday night show, then you already understand how I feel. I feel like Wendy's the best dressed, gorgeous gown, gorgeous feathers, looks amazing. Her hair, makeup, earrings, nails, all of that looks amazing. Don't need it really to speak on the other ladies, but anyway, so we get this reunion started. Of course, Wendy's the last one to get to the set. Giselle, thank God, is not sitting next to Andy. She's sitting next to Wendy. Wendy's sitting next to Andy. Stacy's sitting next to Andy as well. So I really do love this seating arrangement. Seating arrangement is perfect. Perfection. Well, actually, no. I would have felt a lot better if Ashley was sitting on the end. But hey, that's just me. I just don't care for Ashley. But anyway, so we start out with having a little bit of reminiscing about the beginnings of Real Housewives of Potomac. This is the 10th season. The OGs, Giselle and Ashley, who just so happen to be sitting on the second seat of the couch, which I think is very interesting. Giselle is going to prop Ashley up, saying, it started out with me, Karen, and Charisse, in a wives clubs type of thing, and then when we added Ashley into this, and it was she saw something in Ashley. I guess I don't know if she saw the messiness, and I don't know if she saw the shade. I don't know what she saw in Ashley, but she saw something in Ashley, y'all, and they're just very proud of the accomplishments that they've had, and the longevity that they've had as well. Potomac is a great franchise. I do enjoy it. So, props to you ladies for keeping the show going so long. So, of course, we start out with, after we reminisce on the 10-year history of Housewives of Potomac, we then get to Wendy. And Andy asks Wendy, what can you say about the case? Wendy says that she was shocked, she was taken aback by it. Giselle pointed out that Wendy sounded as though it was nothing, that Wendy sounded as though she was kind of happy talking about it, that Wendy sounded as though it really hasn't affected her. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think Wendy's just trying to put on a brave face for everyone. But as we saw in the trailer, Karen telling Wendy that she's talking too much. I didn't hear Wendy speaking on the specifics of the actual case itself. So I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe Wendy will say more, who knows, but, um, I'm assuming Karen won't come along until the third and final part. But, Wendy shares with everyone that, she spent the night in jail. Um, and that was, a little bit traumatic for her. And uh, you know, it was interesting. And then Ashley brought up the fact that that is her worst fear, being arrested, and the fact that two of her castmates have been arrested scares the hell out of her. If you keep your nose clean, Ashley, you won't have to worry about that. I also have to mention Giselle is making a whole lot of faces during this first part of the reunion, and it's not making her face look good. It's exaggerating her neck. It's exaggerating her face, and it's just it don't look good on Giselle. It really does not. I was wishing that she might have had her hair down, like to her sides, and not pulled back the way that it is, because it really accentuates all the features in her face, and is not a good look. But anyways, then we get to Stacy. And for me, Stacey was the star of the season. That's just my personal opinion. I love Stacey. Right now, she is my favorite housewife of Potomac. And she discusses the fact, that a lot of the ladies have been accusing her of lying a whole lot. And we get into this thing between Stacey and Tia. Tia reveals that, while she was sitting on a plane with Stacey coming back from one of the girls' trips, she heard Stacey speaking in a much lower tone and, a different dialect of sorts. And then Stacey brings up that Tia has an accent issue as well, and they go back and forth, and all that good stuff. And you know for me, my favorite part of Stacey's segment was, if Stacey is lying, she's lying about things that don't affect any of y'all. So why are y'all so pressed about it? And Stacey loved that question. And then Giselle goes on to say, well, this happened and that happened. Do you think that we're not going to talk about it? And we're on a reality show, and it is what it is. But I'm so glad that that question called out Giselle and Ashley's messiness when it comes to Stacey. Stacey still came out on top. And my favorite line with Stacey was, I did not expect to be, bombarded with all of this shade and all of this messiness from ladies who have been humiliated by their men over and over again. That was the best read of the reunion. The best read of the reunion. And then lastly, we'll get to Angel. With this being Angel's first season, Angel reveals to everyone that she has bought a home in Potomac, and she's back and forth between Potomac and Colorado. Then Ashley asked her how many acres it is, and I think Ashley said it's a 30 acres, and I guess that's how many acres she has in Colorado, because she has a large property in Colorado. Shout out to Angel for that. And so Angel says it's enough. It's enough, and it's actually in Potomac, unlike you, girl. And we really don't get that much into Angel necessarily. However, I'm so glad that we addressed the fact that Giselle is the one that brought up the catfish comment, and Wendy just laughed about it. And so Angel does reveal that, she had a lot of dip on her chip, because, she wanted to she didn't say this, but she seemingly wanted to get closer to Giselle. I'm assuming because Giselle is allegedly the HBIC of Potomac, not necessarily to me. For me, it's going to be Karen, but anyways, and so I'm so glad that Angel addressed the fact that she went in on Wendy, unfortunately, and Angel does give her apology for that. So yeah, so I'm just glad that was addressed. I want them to address the fact that it doesn't seem like Kiana and Angel are that close. I'm not sure if we're going to hear anything about that necessarily, but we'll see what happens when we get to the second part of the reunion. What did you guys think? Did you guys like this part of the reunion? Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, press the like button, the thumbs up button, press the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Join me every Thursday night at 8 p.m. for my live Hot Topics and Social Commentary show. I go live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. with my sister Prophetic Fire Reiki, as well as our friend Bianca Edwards. We always have a great time talking about the latest happenings and goings on in the world, so join us every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.